Hello, and it's another episode of the CyberDudes podcast. I am still Robin Thornton. He is Omar Sangarima, and this week there was a big old Amazon cloud and Amazon Web Services outage. How did you deal with that, Omar?
So, disclaimer, the actual AWS outage that we are talking about here happened on the 20th of October, which is a couple of weeks ago since we've published this on 5th of November. Basically, I had trouble getting around to editing, so that's the reason for the delay in this. Don't come hunt me down. Just bear in mind that when we are talking in the relatively recent past tense, it's actually a couple of weeks ago. But hey, back to the episode.
Poorly, just like everyone else did, right? And it was not that there's ever a good time for these things to happen, but really Monday, Amazon, poor form, bro. Like, just generally. Come on, but Jeff, do better.
Honestly, I feel like the whipping boy at the moment is Andy Jassy, the great
Right?
CEO,
Not
the chairman of the board.
No, he's Jeff's out there just getting married in Venice, right? Mm-hmm. Burying more of that city in garbage and water, right? Unfortunately, and just being the technocrat that he is, right? So.
Oh, technocracy. I'd love to have qualified people like leading the show again. Not this show. Well, this show as well. Actually, no.
What space would that leave for you and me, man? Like qualified people.
No, this is what I mean. Well, when I'm saying qualified, it's like no media experience or anything like that. This is two dudes with cameras and some.
Two dudes, one camera. Are you going there, bro? I don't.
No,
definitely went NSFW.
No.
Big warning.
No, absolutely not. No, it's like, well, speak for yourself. With everyone struggling on Amazon Web Services, I barely noticed. Or what happened for me was more a matter of just seeing social media blowing up with everybody going, "Oh, things are down," and I think I had such a slow start on Monday that it was just like, "Oh, really? Okay." I didn't notice. I think ChatGPT was a little bit slow. It was sluggish and kind of giving not very good answers.
GPT was slow, surprisingly, and this is going to be funny. LinkedIn was slow, and that's funny because it's a Microsoft like product, but who knows? And I think
was LinkedIn slow because of all the like nauseating braid LinkedIn?
What it taught me about B2B sales?
Yes,
like
exactly.
What the Amazon outage just taught me about B2B sales.
What the Amazon outage taught me about my wedding.
Yeah.
And B2B sales.
Yeah. and my kid's prom or something. Like I've seen like LinkedIn lunatics is one of my favorite subreddits. Mm-hmm. But the thing I always remember about this outage, I think, is there was a side conversation where, one of my very good, cousins-in-law hits me up and goes, "Hey man, what the hell's going on?" Like, and I'm like, "Well, there's an AWS outage," and he just immediately fires back at me. He's like, "What the hell does that mean?" And I'm like,
"Yes,
no," and it just, because I try to pride myself, right, on like being relatable and like breaking it down, but I'm like, I was just a little gatekeepy bitch of like, oh, it's AWS outage. No, like if you're not in the field, how the fuck are you gonna know it? So, and I explained it, and I was proud of myself at least at the rejoinder, right? I was like, hey, part of the cloud is down. Yeah. Right? Essentially, like part of the stuff that keeps the cloud up is down, so it's gonna just have far-reaching effects. He's like, okay, bro, thanks, and I was like, there you go. But my first instinct, I was very ashamed, so I gotta work on that.
I think that speaks to a paradigm that, like, I think a lot of us in tech don't necessarily realize how much the average person isn't or hasn't been clued up. And I changed my phrasing there because it's a matter of, it's not because people haven't bothered to find out. I think it's because of the industry's not really bothered to, or not educated people in the right way about how much the world economy relies on cloud computing. Like, if you consider basically the way that you get all of your TV these days, if cloud computing didn't exist, that's you're still going back to air it
bunny
to
ears.
air it to the transmitter or cable TV, and it's all on a schedule. It's not watch what you want when you want. So that's kind of like that's a big part of it, and the obvious cyber aspect to that is like how integral is all of that technology, because it's not just streaming that relies on it. It's like how integral is all of that technology to the way that we basically operate on a day-to-day business, and then how much of a target does that make those services for an external threat actor? Because I think when the whole thing was happening, there was musings, as there always are, unsubstantiated bullshit musings of, oh, it's Russia or China or someone, which quite feasibly could be, because it's a nice big juicy enough target that like why wouldn't it be? But as it turns out, or from what I've read, at least, it was a DNS error, which again, another one of those acronyms that the average person is not really going to be familiar with. Domain name service error, which fundamentally means like, oh, I got the wrong names matched up to the wrong things and everything fell over.
And it's one of those classically flimsy pieces of the internet. Remember those memes where you have a ton of building blocks and it's that one Lego at the bottom right that just supports the whole thing. There's that. There's, I think, Border Gateway Protocol is notorious as well for being very flimsy. And it's how the internet's built, folks. Like, this whole thing could be absolutely kablamoed very easily, unfortunately. And the musings I want to touch on, where it was, is this a cyber attack? Those two countries that you mentioned are also very notorious for having closed off systems of their own. So if there's many folks that, or if there are any attackers that would take a stab at it, right? It was going to be those that potentially would be, would be insulated as much. Russia's trying to straight up close up its internet. It has, I read somewhere that it has like periodic times where it switches off the external internet just to see if it can get used to, right? Just to see if it can get used to it. China is straight up the great firewall of China is a thing. So that you could see some of the conspiracy theorists go that route. However, last I heard, the official, and I believe it. This is not me putting a tinfoil hat on. I do believe it was DNS because, as our fearless leader says, right, don't attribute to malice what you can explain away with just rampant stupidity. So
Hanlon's razor, is it not?
There you go.
There's many razors. I mix them up and
tough and Puerto Rican. I keep a bevy of them on hand at all times. So which one we're going to play.
Yes. I mean, it's obviously the kind of how do you fix this? It's you kind of can't really. It's the way that things work. You can guard against it though, and that's a use multiple suppliers for your stuff.
Sure.
Now, here's where the hard question comes in. It's like, what's the usual difficulty with using the multiple suppliers?
And are you made of money, Robin? Is that where you're? There's that right off the bat. There's that. Then you touched on beautifully how technologically difficult that can be. There's whole sub industries in the IT industry that make their bread off of sussing out how to do that correctly. There's hardware devices, there's software and architecture setups, and then service providers that go, listen, you have a multi-cloud environment, we'll help you. That's how intricate it can be. Not even to mention, like, then the billing, not just the amount of billing. That's one thing, right? Are you made of money? We touched on that, but then sussing out
complexity of the billing,
right? Like,
what are you paying for?
Oh God, like, it just reminds me of a telecom bill on roids or an electricity bill on steroids.
Delivery charges. What does this mean?
Yeah, and then like on roids itself would be a cloud bill, one cloud service provider bill. You multiply that by 2 or 3, it's just terrifying. So I heard that some of this could have been defrayed by just at least even if you were within the Amazon environment, having your stuff replicated across different regions. So it's not
Mm.
just all in US East 1. I saw some memery. Shout out to AJ Yon with his meme of, hey, I built a highly resilient infrastructure just by choosing my default region as US 2. And then I just skirted around that. But there's there's something to be said about at least having an eye towards some type of resiliency. You don't have to duplicate everything, but just determine what would
No.
absolutely hurt and kill you if it went
Yeah.
down and duplicate that in another
Do you know
region.
what? So there's a few things to touch on here because so for one, I was at a National Cybersecurity Alliance event or earlier in the week,
Love those folks.
and
They were
somebody, yeah,
great.
great,
Yeah.
absolutely fantastic. They always put on a good show, and I learned at that as well. There's only 9 of them in that non-profit. I thought they were a little bit bigger, but no, it's Lisa Plegmeyer and plus like
They
some
get all
interns and
that
a
they
couple
get
of
done with
oh yeah
9 people.
oh yeah,
I'm ashamed.
it's just
I gotta.
yeah, I know it's terrifying, isn't it?
Yeah.
How unbelievably productive are those people? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's wild. But they had a few people talking about some very specific stuff related to this. Who was it? Oh, they changed one of the people that it was. So what this guy's I have him written down as JE, and that's all I know. He was from damn. Oh, my notes are failing me here. Anyway, the point being, like, this guy was talking about
I feel like this is a missed connection, though. By the way, doesn't it seem
hmm?
like JE? We talked on a webinar. I loved your hair. Please contact me if you know who I am.
Shut
Sorry,
up.
my
Um,
bad. My bad.
I think he was that. Well, I think he was from Mastercard. The Mastercard were hosting it. It was at the stock exchange, but the like he was one of the things that he was talking about was like it was the supply chain risk aspect of it.
Mm.
Pet topic of yours, I know that
Oh,
you absolutely love. But there's a lot of the discussion was fundamentally, know what you have and where it is, and that was repeated multiple times about just knowing what you've got, know where it lives, because that is where you're going to be. If you are attacked, that's where you are going to be attacked, and it's also the areas that you need to secure and make sure that you have a plan B for.
it's a brilliant and simple, and brilliant in its simplicity. It's not necessarily easy, but it's still absolutely the right way to go. I think, brother, all of our industry, all of what we do, it still has as a linchpin asset inventory. And assets being very broad. Could be
Yeah.
intellectual property, could be research buckets, could be diagrams, could be actual hardware, software assets, could be people.
Mhm.
Know where your
Yeah.
people are going and where they're going to want to connect to with then other assets that they bring with them. So where are they going to be pinging from? Where are they going on a conference, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's so fundamental to what we do that most of the frameworks we live in the governance space, right? Most of the frameworks that we talk about have that right there. It's just know what you have and where it lives and continuously update it. Right?
Mm.
Have a process to understand that. If you have that, I think you're almost 50 to 60%
Yeah.
through the resiliency gate there.
They even talks about it from a geographic perspective as well, and this is specifically Mastercard. Like, obviously, enormous payments processor,
Sure.
loads of different suppliers from all over the place. But they look at it from the perspective as well, like a geopolitical risk. Like,
Mhm.
if you are, say for instance, you were being supplied by anyone in Russia prior to 2022, you're
Oh,
probably
something
thinking,
happened?
okay,
Did something happen in
well,
22?
yeah, maybe just a little bit. I don't know, somebody moved some tanks somewhere. But
It's just a game of risk. No.
But if you'd have that supplier and you didn't necessarily know that they were in Russia or that they were Russian based, I don't know why. Maybe your procurement team kind of does or something like that. But if you, as the person, the service owner that relies on it, didn't necessarily know that they were Russian, and then suddenly, oh, enormous sanctions, we're cutting off things like, your product line now is in a position where you are in breach of international sanctions because you are using it relies on a product from somebody who is persona non grata.
Sure.
So that aspect is like nowhere that exists, and that's the kind of thing that obviously people have to. Oh, here we go. No, his name is John Errett.
JE, look at you.
Yeah, that's it. But it's so like, and then that's a kind of medium sized business sort of thing. But then on the smaller side, it's still valid, because if, for instance, you're especially if you're a small business and you are more heavily reliant on a particular thing, and suddenly that goes away overnight, you go, oh God, what do I do now? If you have at least an inkling of, oh, well, I looked into this scenario, I sat down for 15 minutes, thought about it, thought, okay, well, who's another provider in this space? How much do they cost? How easy is the setup? How easy can I flip over to them if something goes pear-shaped with my primary who I've decided to use? Or indeed, do I really want to run the risk of continuing to use them? Should I move to a different provider for whatever it is that I'm doing? That's a sensible thought experiment to go through. Even if it's only sort of the initial cursory kind of thoughts, at least you've got a jumping off point. And it's not one of those fail to prepare to fail scenarios.
And all of that's correct. Absolutely. Great advice. We haven't even, and I think we've done this on purpose, haven't even touched on then set of legalities surrounding certain information, where you're going to house it and where it's coming from. You introduce an entirely different can of corn when you start going, okay, I'm going to do business with folks in the EU. Where the hell am I keeping their data? What am I doing there? Or, as you said, there's a list for it. Originates, if I'm not mistaken, out of the you don't want to sell them military secrets, right? Banned countries type list, which is utilized and really.
Wasn't it someone from L3 Harris had been, or a former employee of L3 Harris had been?
Oh, I saw that
recently.
I saw that one, and they got what, like $1.5 million. They were selling secrets to the Russians. Is essentially what I saw. I saw that this morning. Where so you have that list of don't do business with X countries. The financial markets also kind of have that overlap of don't do business with these areas. Sometimes on job applications, they ask you straight away, like, are you a representative of XYZ country? I'm like, no, I speak Spanish, but I'm not Cuban. But you have, there's that. There's EU type of where are you keeping citizen data, even in this country, CCPA. California has something to say about what you have to do and how you have to be with citizen data. So that, and again, knowing what you have and where it lives, and then knowing where you have and where it has to live, if there's any rules around it, it can see you through so many difficulties ahead of the game.
This guy actually, John, as well, like this absolute classic line that he broke out, I thought it was really good, is think about if your daughter was going to date a new person, you'd want to know everything about them. Treat your suppliers that way.
That's very true. Absolutely. Yeah, shout out to any of my daughter's future suitors there. That's going to be tough. I'm gonna know a lot about them. I'll say that. Yeah.
Hello, buddy. How are you doing? Do you like grilling?
How's that foot? Right, what foot? The one you got operated on 3 years ago, and you got put in. What? Yeah, it's like that, brother. Exactly.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, like this isn't one of those things where like, oh my God, you have to know absolutely everything about everybody. It's like the things that you care about, and to a certain extent, this applies to like the individual as well. It's know at least at a cursory level who you're doing business with, where they are, what their rep is like. It's a good way not to get scammed. Is know who you're buying from.
There's even more practically are immediately practical. I agree that we're giving practical advice and this is our field, but even knowing, hey, I have that sack of money in that retirement account that I left that's hanging out over there, but I
Mm,
never moved it when I moved jobs. Something that simple.
yeah.
Speaking with who we spoke with this week, fine folks at
Mhm.
TIAA, that came to
Yeah.
mind. And there's tons of folks that I've helped with. Hey, should I roll that in? Yes, absolutely. Bring that over. If only for,
Mm,
but it's such a small amount of money. Listen, just decrease your threat surface, know where your assets are, and lock that down. Then you only have to really truly lock down one account where you have all your
yeah.
retirement assets, if that's the case. Put MFA, every FA in front of it, and then go there versus then, oh, wait a second, I have to keep track of 4 or 5. No, no, my friends, that's not the way.
And if you don't want to roll them all together and you do want to keep them tracked separately, just make sure you're keeping track in an organized kind of manner.
Absolutely.
Speaking of keeping
Like an
track,
inventory. Like an inventory.
yes. Speaking of keeping track, there was something else that got raised in that sort of sense. There was a panel in it on cybersecurity and AI, and one of the things that got brought up, which I thought was very, for the people who are really deep into AI, it's probably not that forward thinking now. They're probably several steps ahead of it. But for the general population, it's the case of what do we do about agents, AI agents? One of the things that came up, or one of the things that got said um, a couple of times during this whole kind of conference was, oh, I know, we all know what agentic AI is. No, I don't think we do. No, there's so many people. If I go and ask my parents, they're not going to have. They barely have a clue. They don't scarcely have a clue what ChatGPT is
I'd be worried if your
off the
parents
bat.
knew if they were that heavy into agentic AI, Robin. I just, what sort of stuff are they getting into in their free time? Like,
Well, exactly, but
yeah.
it's the case of, so saying, oh, we all know about agentic AI. It's like, well, okay, no, we don't. So first of all, let's break that down. Like, this is taking something like a ChatGPT chatbot and giving it a certain amount more agency to go off and string tasks together off the back of being given a certain goal and guardrail kind of parameters. Say, for instance, booking a holiday, that's the goal, to certain place on certain dates. There's the parameters for certain budget. Go off and do that for me. And it kind of it will do all of that stuff. It's got there's the intelligent logic built into it enough for it to be able to do it. But then, well, what does it do with all of that information? What does it do with what it's gathered? How does it act on it? Are there guardrails in there that says, once you found all of this stuff, come back to me and make sure that I confirm it, that that's what I want to do, rather than you just going unilaterally booking that holiday for me before I have checked it. But then a second layer to that is, and what happens when we create agent upon agent upon agent upon agent, and we get sprawl, and we get so many of these things doing so many different tasks in an automated fashion, creating web traffic, creating data, because here's another one that I've learned was, apparently we as a society create 2.5 quintillion bytes of data daily.
Wow, that number went up.
Which is wild. Yeah, and it's only going to go up further.
Mm.
But all of these agents effectively acting as bots out in the ecosystem. Who tracks them? Who manages them? Who makes sure that they don't go off doing things that they are not supposed to do? Who maintains accountability for them? How do we make sure, or how as a society do we make sure, I have an answer for you on one of these, that there are not agents being created that are operating on social media platforms for the purposes of scamming people? How do you make sure that the agents
That
don't
doesn't
fall?
happen.
No. How do we make sure that the agents don't fall for the scams? Because the agents' behaviors will be as predictable, if not more predictable, than the human beings who would otherwise be interacting with the scams that are hosted on the likes of Facebook and Instagram and and WhatsApp. Yes, I am looking at you, Mark Zuckerberg.
It's targets, shots fired.
How does that all get managed? Because
Doesn't.
I bet that's a problem that 99% of people are not thinking about at all now.
And I
it's
think
got
that it's going to accelerate, especially now with the advent of you have browsers that are promising that have agents built in
oh yes,
that'll
Comet,
Comet. There's
Perplexity's browser, which is
right
free.
there's and of course it is.
Makes me suspicious.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That should be up there. There's a couple others that I think that are the names don't come to mind now, but of course when one has one, you have the other major providers of AI services are going to follow suit. And I don't know what the hell Safari is going to be doing. They're probably going to be getting into some sort of co-licensing agreement with an established player because Apple somehow let itself get lapped in this arena. But you have, come on now,
I am.
they've
No. I am. I'm still. It's fading, but I do start to have this sneaking suspicion that they're just going to like drop a bomb with like in terms of what they've been doing kind of behind closed doors, and it'll be like, oh, okay, they're now the best at this, unless it's just like you say, it's just an area that they've decided now we're not going to for some reason go into that. But it kind of reminds me of the Adam Grant thing about like first mover advantage isn't all that it's necessarily cut out to be, because you can see all the mistakes that other people make and learn from those without making them yourself.
I think there's still that would have been accurate if we're going on the tangent. I'll go with it. I think that would have been accurate a year ago.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying like my suspicion that they have got something up their sleeve is like fading.
It's really diminishing. Yeah, they're flailing.
It's taking too long for something to
and they keep
come out.
And you keep seeing they're gonna go here and then it gets pushed back. Now the foldable gets pushed back. There's something about the pipeline there that is
turning into Elon Musk. Like,
I don't know, dude.
Self-drive's always 6 months away.
Optimus, right? The robots with we're gonna have 100,000 of those deployed, which there at least I'm glad, because you're just gonna stick a gun on top of them and sell them to the cops anyway. But you have a situation where not enough people, as you said, understand what agentic AI can do. Also, I think the folks that do understand don't have the right guardrails in place to be incentivized to care for anything other than feature delivery and first mover advantage, as you said, and screw any other holistic ramifications of what they're doing. And brother, even with non-agentic AI or just tech in general, folks, enterprises, individuals, small groups, churches, whatever the hell you want to say, when they're done with tech, it's not as though we have a good set of process and hygiene and rules for winding it down. It just gets left and hung out there. Every technologist's junk closet will tell you everything you need to know about what we do with old tech. Just stuff it in somewhere and maybe we'll find a use for it, but definitely don't get rid of it because you never know. That
it becomes Monica Geller's hoard closet, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It becomes Marie Kondo's nightmare.
Yeah.
This brings me no joy, right?
Tech Marie Kondo.
Yeah, seriously. So now give all that tech in that closet still the ability to have enough context and enough capability to still have some causation. That's terrifying. If we don't get in front of what we need to do in order to check this. Again, I'm not saying get rid of it. I love the concept. One day, Robin, I'd love my Outlook calendar to run itself. Or to be able to say, hey, I want to make a meeting with Robin, find a time that works for both of us, and that's it. It's checked off my list. We're good. So I feel agentic AI, probably the way that that's going to ever come to fruition, maybe when we retire. That aside, good things. But we don't do anything to offboard and offload tech that we no longer have a use case for anyway, and that's outside of the AI realm.
I would say as well, not just the tech, but also like the data, because there's another thing that was brought up.
Brilliant. Yep.
That was the case of AI slop, which already is just getting to the stage where it's like this is garbage. You know,
And and the AI is
everything,
feeding on the garbage and
yeah,
producing more
everything
garbage
on this
AI.
speed. Yeah, exactly. And it's that. Well, that's the. I mean, it's the heat death of the internet kind of thing, but it's the point at which you go like, who? When do we say A, enough is enough? B, what are we even keeping this content, this data for? Because it is crap. Nobody's interacting with it. Nobody really cares. It is low grade, just sludge. And not to mention, from a security perspective, the weaponization of the weaponization of AI for the purposes of creating slop, for flooding the ecosystem with just general crap that becomes a signal to noise issue, so you can't figure out, you know, if you're a defender, as a cybersecurity professional, trying to figure out what is actually worth looking at. Yes, okay, you're going to be using your own AI, but then that's putting stress on that as to go, oh, well, what's actually good here, what's not? And it's just this kind of proliferation of shit for no real gain. And there again, we end up with a situation where nobody's deleting it. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, at some point, they're going to be in a position where they're going, damn, it's costing us a lot of money to store and host and make available all of this shit. When do we start deleting it, and how? Because just expense. Or is it a scenario where they simply say, well, we won't bother deleting it because it's the data of the customers, so let's just kind of raise the prices so everything gets more expensive for everybody for no real additional benefit, which kind of ends up coming back full circle to the Amazon outage and the disruption that was caused by that. Because at the end of the day, like, who pays for that? Like, there's a bunch of lost productivity. The players that use the service themselves are going through a period where they don't actually get the service. They can't offer the products that and services that they want to. Therefore, their customers lose value. They have disruption. They have the actual the work that revolves around managing and rectifying the disruption, which again is some cost that goes down on the balance sheet. But Amazon's profit margins don't get hurt by that. If anything, on the day of the actual outage, their share price went up because everybody realized how reliant the world is on their tech. And I was reading a newsletter about this like a day or two after, and it was kind of referencing the AI slop thing and the enshittification of the internet and or the enshittification of content. And this guy whose newsletter it was coined the term corporate sludge, where you end up with a load of functions that end up getting made simply for the purposes of managing the loss that exists around these sorts of disruptions. And it doesn't actually provide any additional value. It just becomes like a sunk cost, which gets passed on to the end consumer. So you pay more for less.
And I could see where you start paying this type of disruption quite possibly then says, you know what? If you want 5 nines of reliability, you just saw how important our service is. If you want those sweet 5 nines of uptime,
pay more. Yeah.
Then this is what it's going to cost. Isn't it more important? SLA is going to go up. Reliability can potentially go down. It's not to mention what you haven't touched on throughout all this, which kept on ringing in my head, was the very real energy prices and costs and environmental impact of continuously generating all this nonsense, hoping that we're going to stumble on enough monkeys at the typewriter. We're going to stumble on that golden use case, which is going to make all the billions of dollars in this now somewhat circular economy that AI seems to be engaging in, going to make that all worthwhile.
Oh, I saw a diagram of that the other day where it's like all the capital outflows, and so it's all the investment and then all the investment back in, and it's really funny because you've got like OpenAI are the ones who've got the most arrows like coming out of them. Oracle have got like a couple in and one out, but it was OpenAI, NVIDIA, Oracle, someone else, maybe like Google or someone, and then there's AMD, and AMD is the one with all the arrows into it.
Yeah, it's think.
They're not actually
Did you
spending
send
anything on anything. So I was thinking, like, maybe AMD's worth a couple of bucks.
Did you send me the? It was a extension cord plugged into itself. Was that you, or was that
No.
somebody else? Because that's for me. That's what that whole diagram really shows, where it's a power cord with 3 slots, but where you should be plugged into the wall, it's just plugged into itself. Here you go. That's the AI economy. We're still not there. I'm not poo-pooing that we could stumble onto something amazing, and eventually we're going to.
Yeah.
What I don't understand at this point in time is the amount of money that's being bet on that happening soon, and how that amount of money is propping up the rest of at least the US economy. That's a little disturbing for me. Yeah.
I've heard arguments that a lot of the figures that are being thrown around aren't actually like, oh, we're paying you this now. They're kind of like future commitments on things, on the proviso that certain criteria are met and all of that sort of stuff. But yeah, I understand the kind of, it does look really sort of weird and circular, and at the end of the day, that's how entities operate together, leveraging one another's skills for the sake of, building something. It's sort of almost a quid pro quo, but well, I mean, it is a quid pro quo, but with money. It kind of feels a little bit like internal cross-charging that you get in very large organizations, like just
really kind of does.
Pay,
it feels like that.
Robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of thing.
Yeah, or the vertically integrated economies of like a South Korea, right? Where it's just like these monoliths. Well, it's these monoliths that are just giant conglomerates. Yes.
Yeah.
Where
Samsung does everything from toothbrushes to excavators,
tanks.
Yeah.
Machine guns, to automated turrets to keep the northern neighbors quiet. Like, okay, there you go.
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think there's a. So I did avoid the environmental and data center and power thing. It was in my head, but I did it quite deliberately not to end up off on a complete other tangent that wasn't necessarily related, and then forgetting to round out my original point. But I do think this goes to something that I think people should have an understanding of, or at least have a deeper understanding of, where all of the cost increases are coming from, and that it is part of it is the fact that companies are charging more for less, partly because shareholders are demanding more, right? The average profit margin in, I'm not going down that road. Just fuck you with your bait. Absolutely not chomping on that. But back in the sort of 2000s, the average profit margin for a US company was around about 8%. Now it's about more like 14%. So all these companies are making more money on providing more or less the same services. Like, yes, okay, they've evolved, and there's now cloud computing, there's the AI stuff and all of that. But there's a lot of things of just like slapping some wording on a chatbot and saying, oh, it's now AI. Like, that's garbage. That's not providing an awful lot of benefit to anybody. But if I am trying to do anything with JetBlue customer service, for example, I'm going to be funneled into that. If I actually do want to call up and speak to somebody, they're going to charge me $5 for the privilege of the call, which is something that I found out, and that is absolute bullshit. So it is getting less for more money, or if you want the same service as previous, then you have to pay extra for it on a per call basis. Think about Uber. And a lot of this was founded out of 2008 and the financial crisis, because the interest rates went to zero. So we could afford to, big business, private equity, venture capital could afford to, this is a little bit away from cybersecurity, but they could afford to set up these services whereby it was provide a really good service. It was cheap. It was good. Get everybody on the hook, and then once they're all addicted to it, once they can't live without it because they've been reliant on it for so long, cloud computing, for example, then kind of jack up the price. Uber's gone gradually worse and worse and worse over the years. It is more expensive. I have seen situations where, and it's not even just the inflation thing over, although they contribute to inflation with that. Again, it's all this under the radar corporate sludge that happens where there's a bunch of people doing stuff in organizations that don't really drive an awful lot of value.
It's just fuckitude. It's accelerated fuckitude. If you found a way to extract cash out of folks' wallets, now you can do it at a different rate with AI. And the folks that are left hurting are us.
Mm-hmm.
It's uplifting note right there.
I'm
a bag of sunshine today, but yeah, I mean,
it's fairly sunny. Okay, where else do we go? I have to legitimately just try to scroll by flicking my finger on my screen that isn't a touch screen.
That's fine. That's a-okay. Yeah, Rory does the same thing. Everything's a touch screen for Rory, even stuff that's absolutely not right.
That is a funny one when the way that you see like kids now trying to interact with slightly older technologies. Like, why does it not do the thing that I want it to? Is because not everything is that way yet. I don't. Do you know what? As well, I don't want everything to be a touchscreen. I don't want finger marks all over my nice curved screen that I use for gaming.
So, the only thing I had to touch on was a callback to one of my favorite pret topics, the $1.5 billion bailout of Jaguar Land Rover by the good old.
Are we just going to mention JLR every single episode from henceforth?
If it keeps smelling as bad as it does, absolutely. I think it's just one of those things where you could take the medicine up front, or you could you let out the long fart over months, and it's going to smell like rotten onions when I go around you for at least 2-3 quarters.
This is a delightful analogy.
You're welcome. I thought of it. I thought of it because I actually did shower this morning, so I don't smell like raw onions. But you have.
Do you normally smell like raw onions?
Listen, all right. If I get after it on the Peloton, I make no promises as to how good I can tell I'm aging, right? I'm getting that old man stench there, but it's a situation where. Oh, no, you're welcome. You're welcome for that.
What even?
I think I've just any listenership we did have just clicked off. But you have the incentivization again, and the fight. I think I'm bringing it up because the number went up. I think it was going to be under $1 billion. Now it's 1.5. On one hand, I'm happy that a lot of those mom and pop shops, the singular supply chain providers, that Jaguar was their only big customer, and that's how they paid for their kids' school type situation, are surviving or getting remunerated. But this is the definition of anti-fragility in my mind. I don't have an answer though. I want to say up front, the alternative of letting all these small folks die is not appealing. The folks that should pay for it would never have anyway, because good old JLR didn't even have a cyber insurance policy to speak of, which is what the government got involved in from the jump. As you said, corporate sludge, corporate chicanery, writ large, and now your government, not your government, but the British government is $1.5 billion lighter.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Truly is, man. But immigrants are the problem, right? Yeah. Sorry, hey.
Stop it. No bait. Stop it.
I'm not even trying to bait you. It's been weighing heavy, but we're gonna stay away. We're better than that.
You can dice around in that. I'm not doing it.
I have an attic.
No.
I have an attic. All right. That's all I'm saying. Keep you safe, brother. I love it.
No words. There are no words. You know, to round out, I want to go back to last week's episode, and I want to address some of the comments we've been
Yes,
getting
indeed.
on
Indeed.
the shorts. Specifically, they are concentrated on the ones around update your operating system to Windows 11 because Windows 10 is out of support. And there are a few that are valid, right? Which I will say things like, and it goes back to the 600 million devices that aren't yet updated, the 400 million that won't be able to update. And we did address that, and maybe our editing software didn't necessarily put together the caveats of, yes, there's a consideration to make for the people who can't afford the necessary hardware to upgrade to Windows 11, because that wasn't sort of sexy and interesting and rated well in the virality score or whatever the hell it may be. But there's a couple of people who straight up said, and it's one that my absolute favorite, because it's so it's so self-contradictory that it's comical. Where was it here? So, do I care? Yes, but I don't care about not getting updates. I'm not getting Windows 11. So you care, but you won't do it. I honestly, I have to admit, this comment read as if it was like I won't get the COVID vaccine. That's what it sounded like.
That aside, listen, we're baiting each other left and right here. I just want to put that out there. There are still folks out there in our community, especially, Robin, but in general, that have such a deep mistrust of anything Microsoft related that I could see where.
So, if you have such a deep mistrust of anything Microsoft related, why do you not have a problem with Windows 10?
Because it's a round number. It's an even. It's not odd. It's not prime. I don't know.
I can understand that take from the biggest cohort of people, or the most common response that I'm actually getting, is people saying, "Oh, you should probably move to Linux then," which is, I feel like every one of those needs a bit more of a dig into, because it's like, are you? So for those who don't know, Linux is an open source operating system or operating system framework that, at its most basic, is, how would I call it? It's like, it's the nerd's OS. It's command line. You have to know your syntax and your right commands and all of that sort of stuff. And it's not like, at its basic, it's not the most easy thing to use. But people have created half decent UIs for them. And there's a bunch of guys saying like, oh, we should, probably time to move to Linux. And the reason I say it's worth digging into is like, what do you mean, like a Linux or Unix based something that's somewhat more user friendly? Or do you mean like base Linux? Because 99% of people have no interest in
Linux as a
what you're
daily driver
endorsing
is
base
tough.
Linux.
Linux as a daily driver is difficult. As you said, big parts of the community have created nice skins and variants on them. Reliability is big. I think interoperability has gotten a lot better, even since I've been in tech. So maybe like 10, 11 years. It used to be absolutely bonkers to try to have Linux as a daily driver. I tried for a little bit when an old IBM ThinkPad shit the bed. And shit the bed / it was just getting too old. So I rolled it back. I think I put Ubuntu on there, and I got a bunch of years of life off of it. But even then, there were certain things I just knew. Websites weren't gonna be the way because of the Firefox. Right. It was Firefox, Iceweasel. The browser that was on there. It's gotten better. And to a certain extent, knowledge of Linux is never going to be a bad thing. It's never going to be something. A lot of the backbone of the things that we interact with daily are built on there. But you're right. That's not a viable. It's not an apples to apples comparison It's not viable.
And
You know where I thought you were going to go, Robin? I thought you were going to go where, hey, do you want to use Linux with a nice skin that's a little bit more user friendly? I thought you were going to say Mac at that point because there's also the argument there,
well,
truly.
that's kind of it. I mean, you could interpret it as when you're saying like, oh, you use Linux. It's like, okay, Linux, Unix, Mac is, Mac OS is based on that like foundation. Do you mean just go over there? Because I think the usability of Mac stuff is there. It's a bit of a weird shift for a week or two, but after that you get used to it, and then you do get a lot of more you do get a lot more lifetime out of your hardware. But no, it's the cohort that keeps mentioning the Linux stuff. Every single one I'm having to think about it, like dig back into it and go, but why? And also, are you appreciating that 95% of people just don't have the time, inclination, or sometimes even ability or care to want to make that kind of paradigm shift? They want something that they can go from, for instance, Windows 10 through to the next version being 11, that changes a little bit but is broadly familiar, and just move on from there. If you're a small business owner, I don't think you want to be dealing with the hassle of making an entire technological paradigm shift for how your business operates by moving to a Linux kind of system. And I think it kind of tells, because it seems like a lot of the profiles of the people endorsing this are like, they seem quite techy. Like they seem like if they know what they're talking about. And to your point, for certain people, yes, it's going to be fair. It's a good option. But when you're endorsing that kind of change, always bear in mind, like, what's the average person going to manage, and are they going to find, and the things that you find easy, are they going to find easy too, or do you find them easy because you have much more baseline foundational knowledge than they already do anyway? And if you tried to get them to do this stuff, actually it's going to be a difficulty curve, like walking into a brick wall for them.
And also the support. If you switch it over, you're essentially setting yourself up to draw from a smaller pool of folks that can support it reliably. So yes, it is on its face more reliable. Maybe the interoperability is still an issue at enterprise scale. Maybe not, depending on how you have the environment set up. But at the same time, you can't throw a rock and hit as many folks that are ready to rock and roll and support a full-blown Linux attempt at an enterprise stance as you would Microsoft, or even nowadays Macs. Jamf is big. There's a bunch of folks that are understanding that, and Mac itself, Apple itself is trying to take a bigger swing at being an enterprise solution. So there's that as well. And so you're stuck back at lack of resiliency or lock in with service providers.
Well, and that's there's the what you say there about, like, the lack of support, or the relative smaller pool of support. People who use Linux like Linux for its configurability, its flexibility, with it being open source. Now, with that smallest pool of support, but vastly opened up ability for, or realm of what the art of the possible, there's many more different ways that you can go. And in that sense, you're more complexity in there, or adding in more configurability adds in more ways for things to go wrong. It's one of those reasons why Apple stuff doesn't tend to go all that wrong that much for your average user, because it's quite constrained in terms of what you can do with it, how you can tinker with it to work to your very specific needs. So you can introduce, or you're not able to introduce near as many points of, oh, this went wrong, and it went wrong in a very customized way that only a handful of people are going to know how to fix it, because there's only that number of people who ever went down the same kind of intellectual, technological avenue that you just have in terms of what you were doing. So then you end up having to become the sort of ultimately the master of solving your own problem. And again, if you're a small business owner, for example, or you're an individual who has many other plates spinning in their day-to-day life, do you have the time to mess around with that? Probably not.
No, I agree.
So for some people, yes, it's valid, but, and we'll leave with this, for the vast majority of people, simply updating to Windows 11 from Windows 10, if your hardware will allow it, and if you don't have extremely red line based privacy and whatever other concerns or considerations, Windows 11 is probably just the safest, simplest thing to do.
Smart.
And on that bombshell, we will leave you again, and we'll be back in a week or so, or something like that, and probably once again talking about Jaguar Land Rover and Windows 10/11 again.
Definitely pet projects on both our parts here.
I'm going to try not to bring up Windows stuff again.
No promises about Jaguar. No promises.
All right. On your head be it. Been a wonderful little episode. We'll see you again. And as always, in the meantime, do stay cyber safe.
Adios.